Welcome to Scholars and Prose. This is season 1, episode 4, and tonight's featured author is Kevin Collins, also known as Malik K. Yarborough, and the book that we're discussing tonight is 13 Bars of Iron. Now, Kevin and I met online. We became members of the same history and genealogy organization. And if you'd like to get more information about that, he can. But we met online and discovered some similarities and commonalities regarding our ancestry and formed a friendship. So tonight I invited him to share his book, 13 Bars of Iron, with us. And I'm very excited about this conversation tonight. So let's give a warm welcome to Kevin Collins, also known as Malik K. Yarborough. Welcome. I clap for you. My audience is clapping for you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining. Yes, thank you so much for accepting it and for joining me tonight. And would you like to let us know more about you?
Let's see about me. I am a married father of three, originally from East St. Louis, Illinois, currently residing in Detroit, Michigan. By profession, I am a U.S. military officer. I do project management for the military. Been writing as kind of a hobby, like all of my life, and short stories, poems. 13 Bars of Iron was my first foray into actually crafting a full-length novel. But writing is a passion of mine, as well as reading and research. Those are things that I've always been interested in. So they kind of built upon one another and eventually led to this project.
Okay. Now tell us a little bit about 13 Bars of Iron and the world that you created therein. And also, is it based on a true story?
Okay. So I like to say that it was somewhat based on true events, right? And when I say that, I would say more so the characters were crafted around people that I knew, right? And then, some of the storyline is based on, some things that I've heard about, learned about. So some of the events are true, but as far as taking it from, day one to the end of the story, it's not a, shall I say, it's not a documentary or a biography of anyone. No, but it does have some truth, and there are some true people it's based upon, and some true events in there.
Okay. Yeah. What is special about the main character? When I started out, I delved into it and I realized that it was written in first person.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us about this character. What's going on with him? What is his discovery? And don't tell too much of the book, but just a little bit, a snapshot about this character and why is he special?
Right. Okay, so the character is very interesting, I feel, because I think he reflects a larger, I think he's a prototype, right? He reflects, a lot of characteristics that, Black men in America possess, right? So he's a, very, very smart individual, but the world that he finds himself in is filled with challenges, lack of opportunities, and I think he feels that the situations that he's in currently, if he were someone else, not a young Black African American male, it would be different. So I think the character, his story represents a lot of our stories, right, as Black men in America. And so that's kind of why, I think it's important that he's an important character to understand.
Okay. What is the significance of 13 Bars of Iron? What does that mean?
Okay.
How did you come up with that title?
So that's very interesting. So let me back it up, right? So when I was initially going to tell this story, right? So I'm a fan of like Donald Goines novels, Iceberg Slim. You know, I read those novels growing up and in college, and you know, nice, compact, but they tell stories of the streets, right? And you know, with a moral, you know, with a moral overtones, all right. So street life, but there's always a message of morality, you know, buried within those stories, right? So I wanted to kind of model this book off of like a Donald Goines novel, right?
Okay.
So initially, I was going to make this story about, you know, a young man who, you know, is looking for a way out of his situation, and you know, he does things that you would typically find in one of those type books. You know, he turns into drugs or whatever. You know, becomes a big time drug dealer. You know, lives that life until it doesn't work, you know, anymore, right? So that's kind of where I was going with it. But you know, once I got there, I'm like, this story has been told, you know, too many times, right? You know, what else can I have this young man kind of go through, right? And that still tells that still delivers, you know, that message of morality, and that, you know, it offers a lesson at the end, right? So it just so happened one day, this is how like universe, spirit, whatever works, right? So I'm taking my kids to a museum, right? Charles H. Wright African American Museum. It's in downtown Detroit. It's one of the, probably before the African American Museum in DC, this was probably one of the most better African American museums in the country. Okay. So I'm just going through the exhibits, and then I run up on an exhibit, because it almost does kind of like with Charles H. Wright. I mean, I'm sorry, the museum in DC. It takes you all the way from slavery up until modern times. Charles Wright does it similar. So I'm in the section where they're talking about slavery and getting slaves, the slave trade, right? The transatlantic slave trade. And it said, you know, it there I saw like a display, and it had, you know, 13 bars of iron, right? And it said, you know, this was the price of one adult male, right? 13 bars of iron. And for some reason, they just stuck, right? I'm like, wow, they're just wrong. 13 bars of iron. So without even knowing how I was going to get there to talk about it, I just was like, I'm gonna change the title of this book to 13 bars of iron, right? And then the story kind of just filled in itself, right? But so I started with kind of that character, right? And wanting to take him on a journey. I came up with that 13 bars of iron, and then just kind of worked backwards to fill in everything.
Tell me more about that writing process. How much research was involved? Once you got, I guess, the telling sign of the title for the novel, what was your research process like, if any, and then the remaining part of the writing process?
Right. So there was some research that went into it, some, but most of it was like, it was things that I had either learned, studied, or internalized, you know, just kind of along my own academic journey, along my own kind of just personal study. So most of it was things that I already knew. There were a couple of portions in the book where I wanted to get some additional background information, and I did reference some outside sources, which kind of connect back to our ancestry in a unique way, right?
Right.
Even the 13 bars part, right? Which as I was reading a book, I found another reference to, right? A book specific to our ancestry. I found a direct reference to the iron and 13 bars of iron. So yeah, like I say, things kind of, you know, the universe kind of just works in a certain kind of way. That's how it was with this book.
Okay.
Yeah. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
Was it an emotional process as well, writing it and realizing the link to your own ancestry and how personal it was, and the serendipity involved in writing it? Would you say it was also a spiritual process for you?
Yeah, definitely.
Because that's kind of what I'm hearing when you say spirit and universe.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It was right. So, and I'll tell you when the moment was of the actual book. If anybody wants to reference it or go back and look at it, it's Planting Rice and Harvesting Slaves. Right. It was the book by Walter Hawthorne, I believe, is the writer, is the author. But it's the only really the only research book written about the Balanta people, right? Primarily, the Balanta are kind of the focus of that book, right? And I just happened to, after while I'm writing this is the same time I discovered my own ancestry.
Wow.
Right. So I'm doing both. So I'm writing and then, occasionally I'm researching things about the Balanta. And, early on during the writing process, I say probably midway through the writing process is when I kind of discovered that link between the title that I had chosen and then the direct link to, my Balanta ancestry.
Okay. And again, how did that make you feel? I mean, I probably shouldn't even have to ask that, but
no, it was a wow moment, right? Like, and I felt like, okay, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing with this book.
yeah.
Yeah. So it was like, man, the book wrote itself, and I always say, books, you don't find books, books find you. And that's kind of the same way it was when I was writing this book. Things were just being, and it seemed like kind of revealed along the way that I needed to kind of put in this book. And there's probably 3 or 4 other references or instances where that happened, during this writing process, where things kind of just tied together. Yeah.
Okay. Now, if this book was adapted to film, who would you want to cast in it and why?
Oh wow! I've actually written a screenplay, a script for it.
Okay.
So I do have
so it's coming, because I just felt like I should ask you that.
It's coming. It's coming, right? so I thought about it too, right? So the main character, right? Oh man, what's the young man's name? You seen the series Snowfall, right?
No, actually, I have not.
Snowfall. What else is the young brother in? Oh man.
Let me see if I can Google that real quick.
Google it. He's a Nigerian.
Snowfall.
He's a Nigerian actor. I believe his first name is Damon.
Damson Idris.
Damson, that's what it is. Yeah,
Damson Idris.
That's him. Yeah, yep. So I would have him playing like the lead character, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Why him?
Yep.
He just looks like your character, how you visualize your character.
Visualize the character, right? You always have somebody in your head, he kind of reminds me of a 20-year-old, 25-year-old me. So
I'm looking. You know what? You're right. He does favor you.
Yeah. So I could.
He does. I wonder if. Well, he's Nigerian, so.
Nigerian, yeah.
I was gonna say maybe he has a Balanta background too.
Maybe, right? Somewhere, we all mixed up, all of us anyway. So, yeah.
What about some of the other characters in the book? Who would you cast? Who else would you cast in there?
So I've gone back and forth with my mind is in terms of these people's names. I can see their faces, but the names escape me right now.
Look, I need to catch up with pop culture because I didn't know who he was. I'm always in a book.
I am too, but Snowfall's a good series though. He's a powerful actor.
Okay, check it out.
Yeah, and so then for kind of his love interest, Kim in the story. What is the sister's name? Wow, she was man. She was just in one. There was a Marvel series on. I don't know if you watch any Marvel series. What else? Let me think. You're gonna have me Googling. Hold on. I'm gonna get this. Give me 1 second. What's his name? Tiana Harris.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now I'm familiar with her because of all that beautiful natural hair that she has.
Right.
But she was
Yeah,
in, yeah, she was in another major film a few years
yeah,
back. I forgot which one, but
yeah. So
yeah,
yeah,
okay.
she stays busy, you know.
Yeah, she does. She
She
does.
stays busy. Right, right, right. Yeah. So yeah, so I think that the two lead characters, that's who I kind of envisioned when I was writing them in my head, you know.
Hmm.
And then and then for I just thought about this because for Calvin's mother, who isn't a big character in the story, but um, have you seen the show? Did you watch the show Mixed-ish?
Mixed-ish. No, I haven't seen it.
Okay, so Mixed-ish, you know, that's one of the spinoffs for Blackish.
Blackish. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Mixed-ish, Blackish, the mother Rainbow is her,
Mm-hmm. Right.
it's her like childhood story, whatever.
Okay.
And so her mother is Tika Sumter,
Uh-huh.
and her mother's sister is an actress named Christina Anthony,
Okay.
right? And so Christina Anthony is who I would have played Calvin's mother. And
Okay.
yep, yeah, yeah.
Well,
And
that
then
sounds like a
lastly,
strong cast.
yeah. Lastly, I thought about the character Winston,
Mm-hmm.
right? Couple of people came to mind, but I thought Idris Elba would be like, you know, a decent Winston.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yep.
Now that's gonna bring everybody in. You put Idris in there, a lot of the ladies.
I know, right? Yeah, yeah,
Not
yeah,
to say
yeah.
that Damson wouldn't as well.
Yeah, yeah. The ladies will come out for that cast. The brothers would too. So you
Yeah,
know,
absolutely.
be
Absolutely.
honest. So yeah, definitely.
Uh-huh. That's a strong cast. I
Yeah,
can see that happening. So you working towards that?
yeah. So I mean, I put out some, you know, some feelers. I actually entered a contest, a script
Awesome.
writing contest. You know, when I was going through the screenwriting process, and I, you know, I did a lot of, you know, research in terms of, you know, one of my friends gave me a book, Screenwriting for Dummies, so that's kind of where I started. Then just going up, accessing different like YouTube videos, and so I learned that you know, screenwriting is more direction,
Mm-hmm.
right? You have to set you know, kind of set the scene and tell the story that way versus so much dialogue, right? And I noticed like even I probably put too much dialogue even in the actual book itself,
Mm-hmm.
right? You know, I was working with a friend who was just helping me kind of edit it. So he's like, "Yeah, you talking too much in here, right? You got too much, you know, one-on-one dialogue, right? Kind of, you know, shorten that up." So
Mm-hmm.
I tried to do that in the book, but you definitely have to do that. You know, remove all of that dialogue when you're writing a screenplay. Yeah.
Okay, so why is this story significant? What would you want the reader to take away, you know, to go away with after reading the book? Why should they read it?
So a couple of things I wanted to kind of I want the reader to come away with. One, and it's a love story, right? I think first and foremost, right?
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to show like, you know, Black love, right? I don't think that you have enough stories where there's, you know, genuine Black love without all the dysfunction. And even if there is dysfunction, you know, where's the root of it, right? And so I try to explain or expose a little bit of when you do see dysfunction, where does it come from? All right,
Mm-hmm.
what is the root of it? So I try to do some of that, tell some of that story, right? And then secondly, try and tell the story and the complexities of being a Black male in America,
Mm-hmm.
right? The struggle, right? And you know, from a perspective of, you know, not someone who was necessarily even, you know, you see, I set the background, right? He comes from a two-parent home. He probably had like what we would consider a middle class upbringing, right?
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't, you know, his mama wasn't a crackhead. He wasn't, you know, on the streets.
Mm-hmm.
But even with that reality, you know, the difficulties that a Black man in this society has to face, and the things that he has to navigate Wright strictly because he is Black. So I try to set that and explain that and make that reality kind of come through, for a reader who may not, fully understand it. And so I try to do that with providing a long historical context, right? Going back to, the root of, a lot of our issues, which actually began, with us coming over here, being, stolen and brought here. That's where it begins, right? And so I try to trace that and tell that story. So I want the reader to kind of come away with a better understanding of that.
Absolutely. And is that one of the lessons of the work? You said you like to write stories that have lessons or have a moral overtone to it. Is it digging deeper into some of the social ills that plague us individually and collectively and understanding them instead of just saying, oh, it's dysfunctional and that's it. That's ratchet. Right. That's just trifling and just leave it there.
Yeah, exactly. I want the reader to, and that's why I kind of, I wanted to tell an interesting story, but at the same time, I wanted the reader to come away with something to think about and to, maybe even do some homework, right? So, I did want them to be able to explore, where specifically, that whole ethnocide, right? That whole kind of wiping away of who we are as individuals and us trying to rebuild from that, right? And the difficulties, that we have with that, and the difficulties that manifest themselves in male-female relationships, in families, how that, our history lends and leads to a lot of the things that we have to deal with as families, as couples, as individuals.
Okay. Last question. Why did you choose to write under the pseudonym Malik K. Yarber?
That's a good question, right? So I think part of it was I didn't know where when I started the story where I was going to go with it, right? So I didn't know how close to reality I was going to make it, right? Okay. How close to my actual, life I wanted to make it. So I kind of wanted to put some distance between, between, Kevin and the story, right? I didn't want people to think, this is Kevin's autobiography, right? So that was a reason for me, using a pseudonym. I'll write my autobiography when I write it, but this isn't necessarily it, so I wanted to make that kind of a clear distinction.
Okay. Now, if members of my audience want to read the book and order it, how can they find it?
They can go to Amazon. They can go to Amazon, or you can email me directly if you would like to purchase a hard copy, right? And I'll give you my email address. It's kevc1911@gmail.com. So you can just email me and request a copy. I had all my hard physical copies on Amazon as well, but I'm trying to avoid all of the storage and stockage fees that Amazon and hits you with. So if you can just come, send a message to me directly, and I'll get that copy out.
All right. Well, listen, thank you so much for sharing this time with me and with us. It has been a pleasure. And likewise. I'm sure members of the audience look forward to reading this book and getting this knowledge and seeing that snapshot of Black love, not in dysfunction, but as something that is organic and that is healing.
Yes, absolutely. I hope that they do, take us up on the offer to purchase the book. I think it has a little bit in there for all audiences.
All right. Again, thank you. And this has been season 1, episode 4 of Scholars in Prose, where we delve into the minds of the author of the work to find out their purpose for writing the book and their inspiration for writing the book. Again, thank you so much, Kevin Collins, aka Malik K. Yarborough, for joining me tonight.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Likewise.
Bye-bye.